Let's move now to the third speaker and hear the Cypriot Experience, which is the most recent one and very interesting one.
I was wondering if it's okay to see.
I guess so,
Yeah.
if the camera is okay with that.
The reference of the previous speaker on the case of Cyprus regarding the first country to be treated in a bail-in, bank restructuring way is very interesting, and I think it shows the importance of power considerations. Previously, Maria mentioned that Greece is being treated as a case of experimentation in various ways. I think the case of Cyprus shows that this process of experimentation has been carried to an extreme point, that they're prepared to destroy a whole economy, for sure, in a very definite way, in order to draw some inferences or in order to use Cyprus as a blackmail item. Look what's happening to Cyprus, so in order to promote their policies in a certain direction. Okay, firstly I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation. Cyprus is one of the 4 cases which has entered the Troika treatment, the Troika regime. But I think the case of Cyprus is not well known, it's not fairly adequately presented at European forums. I will try to give a brief outline of the main characteristics of the Cyprus case. As I said, Cyprus came to international prominence through the decision of EU authorities to go for a bail-in bank restructuring. Also, regarding today's meeting, I think it's very important for countries of the European periphery to meet, to exchange views. Already I am personally in the process of learning a lot of other countries, but also I think it's important at the political level in order to, at some stage, being in a position to develop alternative economic strategies, both at national levels and also at a European level. So I think this exchange of views, this exchange of experiences is vitally important. Okay, now what I will try to do is firstly say a few things regarding to the conditions which have led to the kind of crisis we had in Cyprus. In order to do that, I'm going to indulge a little bit in a brief economic history review of the kind of model of economic development which developed in the case of Cyprus, its peculiarities. I am going to give some more emphasis on the banking crisis and the nature of the factors which have led to the situation regarding the banking sector. The Cyprus memorandum, the items, the main components of the memorandum in Cyprus, economic and social consequences, as well as some directions for an alternative economic strategy. Now, regarding the causes of the crisis in Cyprus, I think it's important to bear in mind that there are both
local local peculiarities, as well as the interconnectedness of the Cyprus economy at the European level. In various instances, it is difficult to disentangle the two aspects, but I think it is important to be able to identify clearly the peculiarities, the specific characteristics of each economy in crisis, in order to be able to propose an alternative economic strategy, an economic proposal. Now, the case of Cyprus, I think its main characteristic from the last couple of decades has been a kind of economic model where the productive sectors of the economy, both the manufacturing sector as well as the agricultural sector, have shown a process of constant decline. The share of the manufacturing sector in Cyprus has declined from about 18% of GDP in the early 1980s to something like 6%, which is currently the case. So this is one of the lowest contributions of manufacturing to the economy in Europe. In other words, Cyprus has been going through a steady process of deindustrialization from the early 1980s to the present. Now, deindustrialization has also been a characteristic of European economies, but in the case of Cyprus, it is different. And in some literature, this has been characterized as a premature deindustrialization, in the sense that the economy hasn't managed to reach a sufficient level of technological development, productivity, etc., before a process of deindustrialization has taken place. Now, the issue of economic development, the issue of sectoral balance in a small economy like Cyprus is of course related to the role of the state, to the role of economic elites and class relations. So for the first decades after 1980s, the process of economic development in Cyprus was mainly dependent on the tourist sector, and this has provided the legitimacy to the government in order to ignore the productive sectors of the economy. Now, obviously, this was a short-sighted policy, since the development of the tourist sector has obvious natural limits, and therefore at the beginning of 2000 the economy of Cyprus was already facing problems of sources of economic growth. It was going in a situation of stalemate. Now, at that point, a new policy has developed, which is related to the financial sector. Quite a few interesting points mentioned earlier refer to the case of Cyprus. Around early 2000, specifically in 2003, the government of Cyprus has decided to follow a deliberate taxation policy in order to attract foreign capital. So the corporate tax was reduced from 25%, which was the European average, to 10%. This was a deliberate policy to change the direction of economic development in Cyprus, from a tourist destination center to a financial center. Now, the 10% corporate tax meant that huge amounts of capital inflows took place, and it was designed in such a way, and the whole infrastructure was provided in order to lead to a process of tax avoidance. So in Cyprus we have what is known as round tripping. There is capital inflow mainly coming from third countries, the Russian basically economy, the Russian state, which through the taxation system and the regulation system, it leads to a situation of tax avoidance. This has led to a huge expansion of the financial system in Cyprus. The financial system in Cyprus has doubled its size from early 2000 to 2008. In relation to the previous policy of low taxation, we had also a policy by the banking system itself to have higher interest rates than the rest of the European countries. So the inflow of capital provided a new sector to the economy, but it also provided huge capital inflow, which found itself into the banking system of Cyprus. The banking system of Cyprus overexpanded, and that has led to a series of decisions. Firstly, providing the finance for a real estate boom, which took place during the 1980s. The international expansion of the banking system, primarily in Greece, but also in other European countries. And during the late during the late 2000s, 2008 and afterwards, the banking system in Cyprus overinvested in Greek bonds. That provided the initial element, the initial factor leading to the huge economic crisis in Cyprus. So at that point, the economic crisis in Cyprus had two main components: the bursting of the real estate bubble and also the bursting of the financial expansion bubble. This in relation to a process of deindustrialization, which have left the productive base of the economy in a very weak state. Now, regarding the memorandum, I think the elements of the memorandum in Cyprus are very different, are very similar to other countries. Austerity, fiscal consolidation, reduction in wages, salaries, pensions, etc. Also in Cyprus, as it was mentioned, but I think this is also the case in Greece, we have the insistence for privatization of public sector organizations. Of course, what is very specific to the case of Cyprus is the way they have gone about restructuring the banking sector. Bail-in, which means haircut of deposits, basically means the destruction of the banking system. There is no way that a banking system can recover after a bail-in. And this is exactly the situation we are at this moment. The decision for a bank bail-in has taken place a year ago, and the process of deposit outflow the process of credit crunch, the process whereby the bad loans in the economy are increasing, are leading to a situation where the banking system is non-sustainable. So there is the real possibility for another financial crisis in Cyprus, and this is in conjunction with the rest of the items of the memorandum, the financial austerity, the privatization process, which have left the economy in almost a state of economic collapse. Now, amongst left organizations and left parties, there is a lot of discussion, and the elements of an alternative economic strategy are beginning to be developed. Now, the first of these elements is that the bank restructuring which has taken place in Cyprus has to be reversed. A new way of organizing the banking system has to be developed, and the foundation for such an alternative restructuring of the bank system has to be public ownership. I think in a lot of the discussions today, the role of the financial system, the role of the banking sector has been prominent in leading to the crisis. I think we have to put more forcefully the view that public ownership of the banking sector, the issue of credit, the issue of money as a public service, which can be controlled democratically by the society, and in this way we can proceed to issues of industrial policy, issues of alternative forms of economic restructuring, increasing investment, new credit policy directions, new interest rate policies. All these things can be formulated and democratically controlled. The second aspect of an alternative economic policy in Cyprus is the issue of the industrialization. As I mentioned earlier, the industrialization poses huge problems and challenges to an economy, and this is the case in Cyprus. In a similar way to other peripheral European countries, we have huge current account deficits, we have low productivity growth, and the most important aspect is that the sources of growth and endogenous growth have been eliminated. Tourist development has natural limits. The environment has been decimated in Cyprus. The development of the financial sector has created huge difficulties regarding the overexpansion and the lack of control of the banking sector, and therefore we have to move in a new economic planning direction, which gives emphasis on the role of manufacturing. There is already a lot of international experience regarding successful cases of industrial policy. It originated in Southeast Asia. There is a lot of literature, and there are a lot of arguments regarding the manufacturing imperative. Also, the issue of industrialization, I think, is an issue which can be placed at a wider European level. There are a lot of arguments regarding fundamental transformations at the European level regarding financial issues, the role of the central bank, the role of microeconomic policies, etc. I think we have to, as a periphery, in order to deal with the issue of divergence, which was mentioned earlier, we have to argue for a new division of labor at the European level, where the manufacturing sector, the productive sectors of the peripheral country are given space and are given encouragement to develop. So in the case of Cyprus, the three basic elements of an alternative economic strategy is public ownership of the banking system, redirection of financial resources towards the productive sources of the economy. Obviously, this means the complete getting out of the memorandum and an alternative process of fiscal consolidation. I think it was also mentioned earlier that fiscal consolidation is carried out in a very specific way, where wages, salaries of low incomes, pensions, etc., are given the primary position. I think it's important to start arguing for taxation of high incomes, increasing the taxation coefficients of high incomes, both at the public sector level and the private sector level. The policy of low corporate profits for attracting foreign capital, I think, has to be reversed. Taxation of wealth, all these factors both contribute to a higher degree towards fiscal consolidation, and they also impose a less cost on the economy due to less impact regarding consumption. What can we expect in Cyprus? We can expect what has been happening in Greece, what has been happening in other countries. Continuing recession, the level of unemployment has already reached 17%, which represents a quadrupling of unemployment in the last three or 4 years. There is no prospect of economic development, and also there is no prospect of achieving the fiscal deficits which have been imposed by the Troika. So we are in a process of economic catastrophe. Something has to give. We support, and many organizations in Cyprus, public ownership of the banking sector, an alternative economic program, and an alternative economic program at the European level.
So, thank you very much, Mr. Pandelidis, for giving us an overview of the Cypriot case, which hasn't been that in our discussion since the last year, because we have been discussing among the countries that have been facing austerity policies longer, and Cyprus, as I mentioned earlier, was a more recent case. And as someone said before in an intervention in the previous session, maybe Greece suffered during these 4 years quite abrupt change in its economic situation. But I think that in Cyprus it was really a shock what happened. This is obvious when you speak to Cypriot people that were used not only to a high living standards, but also to they were used to a view that they were really living in a very strong economy that had no relation whatsoever to what was happening in the rest of Europe. So you described to us the process of financialization as it happened in Cyprus, this deindustrialization, the reduction of the agricultural sector, and you also posed a very important issue that we are going to face, all of us, about what is the meaning of the new industrialization thinking. Because speaking about industrial policies in this era is different in many respects than the talks about industrial policies that we used to have. So from our experiences in Greece, we learned that in this discussion you have to incorporate the issue of economic and social transformation inside the discussion about industrial policies. So you have to talk about the subjects, you have to talk about the relation between them, you have to talk about the relation between the public sector, the private sector, the solidarity sector of the economy, what is how they interact between them, what is their relative role in the economy, and all this in the different economic contexts.